Hope everyone's doing well today. Thank you for joining us. This is our first webinar of the year. Hope to get started soon with another series of webinars. But joining me today is Floyd with NRCS Texas, the Beginning Farmer Rancher Coordinator. Um, yeah, this will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next couple of days. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat Q&A. We'll try to answer them if we have time at the end. But yeah, other than that, Floyd, thank you for joining us and take it away.
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending upon your location. Once again, I'm Floyd Nauls. I am the State Outreach Coordinator, Tribal Liaison, as well as the Beginning Farmer Rancher Veteran Coordinator for USDA here in Texas. So I guess to get through the small talk, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of my presentation. See. Diego, can you see me? You see my presentation? Perfect. Thank you. All right. Let's see. So once again, I've given you an introduction of who I am. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about my agency and how we can assist you as far as being beginning farmers, ranchers, etc., out there across the United States. So who we are, we're the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is a federal agency under U.S. Department of Agriculture. Our mission is we deliver conservation solutions so agricultural producers can protect natural resources and feed a growing world. Our vision is a world of clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and thriving agriculture communities through voluntary conservation. And once again, like I say, a lot of times I'm going to go through and give acronyms. We're a government agency, so a lot of times we have a tendency to cut it short. And once again, like I say, if y'all are not familiar with us, we are USDA. We're under that USDA umbrella, which you have 29 different agencies. And I have to say that I work for the best one, which is the NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. But in short terms, let's just call it NRCS. So what do we do? The NRCS, basically, as employees, we directly work with farmers, ranchers, foresters, landowners, and urban ag producers to basically provide technical expertise and financial assistance to meet their unique conservation and business goals. And we provide one-on-one consultation, basically personalized advice, uh, which is voluntary with producers and communities to find the best solutions to meet their unique goals for their business. By doing this, we help address long-term sustainability of American agriculture. So it starts with a visit. So you might have heard about USDA and RCS in a presentation such as this. You might have heard it from a neighbor, a workshop, a newsletter, a Google search. Once again, if you look and kind of zoom in on that QR code, that there actually, if you're not in Texas, I'd love to help you. But but therefore, if you're in a different state, I would highly recommend shooting that QR code, and it will give you your local beginning former coordinator for your prospective state. But then from there, how this process starts is basically you call into the office and just introduce yourself and say, hey, look, I'm new to farming and ranching. I basically have some property, and we will schedule a site visit with you to come out, look at it, and provide our recommendations. So one thing that I would highly recommend is prior to that field visit, I would highly recommend checking out this site. And when we talk about resource concerns, Basically, we're addressing resource concerns with conservation practices. So to go through to give you a little bit better understanding, if you go through and go to this website and look at it for potential opportunities in regards to water, animals, soil, plants, energy, and air. So that's how we actually get conservation implemented is by addressing resource concerns. When we talk about NRCS terminologies, the natural resources are going to be soil, water, air, plants, animals, which we refer to as SWAPA. Sometimes you might hear plus H, which stands for plus humans. But basically, resource concerns, basically, one would be expected to degrade of the soil, water, air, plants, or animals' resource base to extend their sustainability or to intend for the use of the resources impaired. And once again, those conservation practices basically are activities that landowners can implement on the ground to improve specific natural resource concerns. And when we're talking about natural resources, those natural resources are the basic building blocks for every property, regardless if it's a half an acre or if it's thousands of acres. So that's the way we go through and we look at it from that perspective of addressing those natural resources through resource concerns. Currently, we have a new theme that we're going through, and that's basically one farmer, one file. Basically, this is a single streamlined record for each farmer throughout USDA, and this prevents duplication and increases productivity. So this is something new that USDA is trying to work with. So for maybe some of you that worked with USDA in the past, you have a number of different agencies that you work with to get eligibility for various programs, things of that magnitude. This here is supposed to streamline that whole process to make it a whole lot easier. So when we're talking about the field visit, one thing about USDA and NRCS, we love to get out of the office. And one of the best ways to get out of office is to actually go through and walk the property with you. Like that, we can go through and listen to what your concerns are. Because that's our whole objective is to listen to you, find out what your concerns are, and provide recommendations of how we can actually work together to solve the question or the situation that you have currently on your property. Also, we actually go through and we identify the goals and concerns that you might have because once again, these conservation plans, which I'll get into a little bit later, they're basically site specific for you as an individual. It's not what is going on next door at your neighbors or what your cousin is doing in a different state. Is basically what your goals and objectives are on your property in your perspective, state as well as county. So once again, we'll go through and we'll identify those resource concerns. We will make an inventory map. And basically, this will be looking at possibly existing water, creeks, dams, water structures, cross fencing, cattle numbers, and we'll just go through and we'll inventory it all and put it on a map. And then from there, we'll draft a basic conservation plan for you. So you might ask, what is a conservation plan? Basically, step one is going to be guidance. It's going to be a clear step-by-step plan that meets each farmer or rancher's needs and goals. And basically, this is suited for you and your property. It's not cookie cutter. This is basically one-on-one consulting with you to find out how we can go through and address specific circumstances on your property in a specific amount of time. Anyone can request a conservation plan, even if you're not applying for financial assistance. And I guess one of the biggest things that should bring a smile to your face is it's taken care of. There's no fees or anything that you have to pay to get a conservation plan. So once again, this is not a contract. This is a conservation plan, and basically, it's looking at what resources out there on your property that you might want to address through a voluntary basis. This here is just kind of a slide that's going to kind of show you what comes with that conservation plan. It'd be some aerial photography, and typically it'll be two or three different shots. It won't be something that high up and make your place look so small. At that point, we will zoom in and show you different groups of different views of that aerial photography. Then from there, we'll also go into the schedule of operations, which is a middle document. Right there at the very top, it's going to talk about your objectives because once again, we're out there to assist you and basically address the concerns that you might have on your property. We'll go through field by field and we'll go through and look at it, explain what the resource base is, if it's going to be pasture land, if it's going to be forestry, and then from there we'll provide those conservation practices that would be associated with it if it's going to be grass planting or a pond or a tank for livestock consumption or maybe tree planting or thinning or something of that magnitude. So once again, that schedule will actually be your guide moving forward. And once again, when you're talking about that conservation plan, it can be basically updated at any time. So once again, I would highly recommend if any of the attendees do not have a conservation plan in place, I would highly recommend reaching out to your local conservationist and getting that conservation plan. Another good thing is we're talking about soils, and basically accompanies a soil report. It'll go through and it'll look at the soils that's on your property, and from there it'll show you how productive that soil is, just depending upon what you're talking about doing. So, say for instance, if you're talking about a pond site, if you have a fine sandy loam, it's probably not going to work. It probably wouldn't be the best site for a pond. But then again, there are different alternatives to where you might not be able to put a pond in, but you might be able to run a pipeline, trough, things of that magnitude to provide water for livestock. Also, you have your practice specifications, and basically those are going to be spot on per state. So sometimes, depending upon the state, those practice standards and specifications can change or be a little bit different. So I'd highly recommend looking at that as well. So there are two types of assistance: conservation technical assistance, which we refer to as CTA. And once again, this is what I've been talking about. It's basically personalized advice that we provide as an agency uh, to go and look at your property, and it's basically going to be science based, depending upon what the circumstances might be, and it will help you make an informed decision. Once again, and this is free. It does not cost you anything. It's just basically providing you information, putting boots on the ground, looking at your resources, and then from there formulating that conservation plan. From there, when we go to the other side of the table, talking about different types of assistance, you have financial assistance. And we're talking about financial assistance. There are a number of different opportunities that NRCS can provide to you. There are, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that throughout my presentation, but these contracts, they can be anywhere from 1 to 5 years. The practices will be planned and certified to meet NRCS standard specifications, and payments will be made on a partial reimbursement after practice completion and certification. And once again, I'm going to kind of follow back up to that second bullet point I have there. Practices will be planned and certified to meet NRCS standards and specifications. And once again, this is when we're talking about the financial side of it, to where we're talking about NRCS providing money through programs. And then again, there basically will be a certain amount of money or reimbursement once that practice is completed and certified to meet those specifications. In Texas, these are some of our common practices. It's going to be brush management, range and pasture planting, cross fencing, grazing management, livestock pipelines, high tunnels, cover crops. Also, there's a number of different practices that are associated with urban gardening. One might be raised beds, things of that magnitude. So, also, we're talking about tree planting and ponds. We were always known as the pond people because basically before our name changed, we were the Soil Conservation Service, and everybody knew us as being the individuals that came out and basically designed and constructed ponds. And depending upon what part of the United States you're in, we call them ponds, we call them dams, we call them tanks. So it's a number of different terminologies that we're looking at, but basically it's to provide water for livestock consumption. This here is our EQIP program, and it stands for Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So once again, this is a great opportunity that a lot of farmers and ranchers and land users basically get enrolled with NRCS. Basically provides financial assistance in exchange for successful implementation of certain conservation practices. The incentive payment, basically, it is an incentive payment for conservation practices and reviewed and basically set each fiscal year. So once again, every year it kind of changes just a little bit, but for the most part, EQIP is one of our flagship programs. One thing that I would highly recommend if you are interested in any of our programs uh, throughout the United States, each NRCS office has a meeting. It's called the local work group meeting, the LWG. I would highly recommend you finding out when these local work group meetings are going to be held in your specific counties and go and participate. It'll give you a lot of information on what practices are being offered, whether the higher priority practices for specific counties, and it also gives you just an opportunity to meet uh, that local district conservationist, the FSA, and other partners that might be in attendance at that meeting. Right here is just kind of a scenario or a sample of basically EQIP and how the conservation practice is laid out. So we'll just go through it kind of as an example just to talk through the process. You have that practice, and it's going to be brush management. The scenario is going to be basically mechanical treatment for large shrubs, medium infestation. So that might be the scenario that you have on your property. It might be a chemical treatment. So there are different scenarios just depending upon which avenue is going to be the most effective. That practice code is 314. Uh, the unit type is going to be acres, and the rate is going to be $386.63 per acre. After we had that conservation meeting with this individual, the estimated practice size was going to be 10 acres, and that's going to show the possible amount that you can receive. So once again, that's just kind of going through line by line and looking at different case scenarios. You have a pond. It's going to be basically an excavated pit type pond. That practice code is 378. The way that we look at it as far as the unit type is going to be cubic yards. The payment rate on it is $2.47. And the estimated is going to be 3,100 cubic yards. So you're looking at a possible payment of $7,657. And then from there to go through the range planning is kind of the same scenario. So basically each practice has a different scenario. Also, it has a practice code, and then you're looking at unit types and you're looking at that payment rate. And once again, like I say, it's an estimated cost, and that's what we're doing is we're giving you an estimated cost after making an initial boots on the ground visit as far as developing a conservation plan, and we're working through the EQIP process. We're looking at, say, for instance, that's the reason why we say estimated cost is by the time you actually get a dozer out there and you're doing that brush management, we came up with 10 acres. You might only get 8 accomplished. We will go through and we will GPS that off to make sure that we're certifying the right amount. But once again, just understand that the extent. So those units, if it's not what is estimated in that plan, basically it will be reduced. So you're going to basically get paid for what you're doing. It's not what was predicted, it's actually what conservation practice or what extent was implemented. So just want to make that clear. Like say, for instance, with the pond, we're talking about 3,100 cubic yards. If it comes out of just say, for instance, 3,000 or 2,800, that's what we're going to pay on is the amount that's certified. So just be aware of that. Another great opportunity that you have with NRCS would be our Conservation Stewardship Program. And basically, with this program, it increases your level of conservation by adopting additional conservation activities and practices depending upon the baseline of that system. Typically, these are going to be contracts for 5 years. When we're talking about that, we're talking about the requirements, and basically, you're going to enroll your entire property. It's not basically looking at a specific track or field. You have your minimum criteria, which is going to be to meet two priority resource concerns on every land use identified in the operation. You must also meet at least one additional resource concern by the end of the contract. Also, you have your payments, which we're going to talk about annual payments, and those are typically made after October 1st for each fiscal year. And the minimum amount for annual payments is $4,000. Another opportunity in working with USDA and RCS, these are going to be some of our easements. It's going to be an agricultural land easement, which is ALE, which basically helps private tribal landowners, land trust, and other entities protect croplands, grasslands on working farms and ranches uh, by limiting non-agricultural uses of land through conservation easements. Also, we have our WRE program, which is going to be more reflective of wetlands. So, what land is eligible for ACP, ALE? Those are going to be those agricultural lands. The NRCS will prioritize applications that protect agricultural uses such as cropland, rangeland, grassland, pasture land, and non-industrial private forest land. Our regenerative pilot uh, program, which is a new program that we have, and it's basically a regenerative agriculture in conservation management application emphasizing on natural resources by improving soil health management, uh, the natural fertility for the productive uh, lands across the American communities. The RPP is a farmer first, outcomes based approach on conservation design to return the agency to its core mission, helping people help the land by addressing whole farm resource concerns through support for voluntary regenerative agriculture conservation plans. It's basically looking at soil health testing. Participants must agree to perform soil health testing, which is one of the practices in it is CEM 216 in the first year and the last year of the contract at minimum to establish the starting baseline and to record the results of change. Financial assistance for soil testing will be available to both the producers who have not previously completed soils testing and producers who have already tested their soils. So an example of primary practices under RPP would be soil management, cover cropping, water management, farm, land and livestock uh, integration, which would be grazing management. So those are just a couple of sample practices that would actually be able to be addressed under RPP. So once again, the RPP program is going to look at the whole farm assessment, those primary practices, that's soil testing, and it's a minimum of a 5-year contract. So, once again, there are a number of different opportunities that NRCS can offer you. Once again, that was EQIP, it was CSP, it's easements, and then also our new program, which is RPP. I just want to talk a little bit, a touch on tips for success. Number one, basically reviewing the application and the contract appendix. Once again, this kind of gives you an opportunity to research and find out more about the agency and the commitment that you're signing up for when we're talking about financial assistance programs. Number two, simply ask questions. We really encourage you asking questions like that. Everybody will be on the same page moving forward throughout the process of contracting. Uh, Check in occasionally with that local field office, especially if you have a contract or a financial obligation with them. Nobody wants to be ghosted. So at that point, I would say, just check in, let that DC or that conservationist know what's going on with your contract. Hey, I've hired my fence building contract, I mean my crew, and from that I plan on starting in the next 2 weeks. Make sure that you have a good understanding of the practice and standards and specifications or the enhancements that's required, uh, and basically the required documentation that is needed. Once again, this can be found online, which is going to be our field office tech guide, and they are site specific for each state. But once again, it kind of gets into the meat and potatoes of those standards and specifications. Uh, when I was in the field, one of the scenarios that I used to always tell customers that I was working with, and that was basically, you probably know how to build a fence. I know how to build a fence, but Uncle Sam wants you to build a fence a certain way when you're getting financial benefits through our programs. So once again, I would just highly recommend make sure that you have a good understanding of those practice standards and specifications before enrolling into a program. Also, have a plan, and I'd say be ready to start when you're obligated. Once again, like I say, be ready to start when your funding opportunity starts, because there's no telling what obstacles can happen to where the price goes up and it totally changes in the middle of your contract. So you want to make sure that you get that done and get that financial assistance that's in your plan up front, and basically you know what you're going to spend to get those done as far as scheduling that contractor, placing orders for materials, things of that magnitude. And that kind of brings up the scenario, prior to COVID, uh, a spool of barbed wire was around $87, $97 a spool. After COVID, it jumped up to like $187. So once again, it highly behooves the individual that is participating in programs to go through, do their research, find out what the cost is going to be, to find out if it's going to be really beneficial for them to enroll in a program, and then from there, what the cost is. Nobody likes surprises, especially when spending money. Implementation, a plan, basically a planned practice must be completed within the first 12 months. Also, stick to the plan. If you and that conservationist, you have a plan in place or you have a contract in place, make sure you stick to that plan. Don't vary from it. Things change sometimes, scenarios change. At that point, have that conversation with that district conservationist, let them know what you're thinking about to see if we can go through and incorporate that change into your contract. Uh, Understand the cost. Uh, Basically by talking to consultants, contractors, and price out your items. So once again, as we talked about, with basically barbed wire, looking at, say, for instance, the construction of a pond, you probably want to go through and visit with local dirt contractors in your area to find out what the cost is going to be per cubic foot as far as getting that pond excavated or a dam constructed. Also, you do or you can ask for a receipt for service with NRCS, and that receipt for service basically states why you might have stopped into the office. And then from there, what is going to be the remedy or moving forward to how we can assist you with your concern? So those are just a few tips for success that I would highly recommend when working with USDA and NRCS. And I'm just going to drive this nail back home. Once again, another formula for tips for success. Number one, as stated previously, ask questions. Uh, from there, review that contract appendix to make sure there's no surprises and you do have a great understanding. Understand that practice standard and specification or enhancements. Be ready to start work. Understand the upfront cost. Stick to the plan and schedule, and just respond promptly. Like I say, once again, nobody likes to be ghosted. If we're working together in a partnership to get conservation implemented, it's always good just to check in and make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, and we can go through and build that conservation practice together. USDA NRCS, helping veterans. USDA wants to ensure that veterans looking to return home or start new careers in farming and ranching in their communities have the tools and the opportunities they need to succeed. USDA supports veterans involved in agriculture, urban agriculture, and basically talking about innovative production. Urban agriculture includes cultivating, processing, and distribution of agricultural products in urban and suburban areas. Also, our tribal communities and small towns may be included. Right here, this is my contact information. Once again, I'm Floyd Nauls. I'm the beginning farmer rancher coordinator here in Texas, as well as outreach coordinator and tribal liaison. From there, this QR code would basically be applicable if you're here in Texas. But once again, feel free to reach out to me if you're in a different state and you do not know who you need to contact. I can provide you that information. That's my email, that's my phone number. And once again, yep, thank you and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Floyd. And I got a few questions I wanted to ask you regarding your presentation, a few
Yes,
points that
sir.
you went over.
Okay.
First one I have is what are the requirements to participate in the EQUIP program?
Basically, the requirements, uh, all participants must register their property with USDA, and that will probably be with the Farm Service Agency to actually go through and provide a deed. Along with that deed, so it'll be some other information that is required. And once again, this here takes care of the eligibility side of it. USDA NRCS, we have an agreement and a working relationship with the Farm Service Agency, which is a different agency. But once again, you take your deed into them. There are some other forms and other documents that they might require. At that point, they would take care of your eligibility. Then from there, you'd come to USDA NRCS, have those discussions, put boots on the ground. We go out, look at your property, find out what your concerns are, and then we go through if you wanted a conservation plan, we go through and formulate that conservation plan. Or if you decide to go through one of our financial assistance programs, at that point, we can provide that appendix, that application, and work through that process also.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
And
and not to cut you off, one other thing is we take applications year round, but please understand that we do have ranking windows. So those are windows of opportunity for funding. But once again, we take applications year round.
okay. And another one is let's say I want a pond and I want to plant some grass for like some goats. What program can I apply for assistance for that?
Okay. Uh, I would say the program that would probably be for you would be our EQUIP program, and that's the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. We touched a little bit on it when I was showing the different scenarios, but
Yep.
once again, when that conservation meets with you out on your property, at that point, y'all can have those discussions. Because number one, y'all are going to kind of talk about your objectives, what you're planning on doing. If you're going to go through and basically raise the goats, put them into the meat production, if you're going to do them, basically do show animals, whatever it would be, at that point, uh, it would be addressed in that, in basically that overall, we look at it, find out what your objectives are, and then from there, I think the EQIP program or even the RPP program would fit what you're trying to do. And once again, EQIP is basically looking at a kind of an individual practices or a few practices, where RPP, we're looking at looking and addressing the whole entire property, and then from that being possibly a 5-year contract.
Okay. Let's see. There's another one that I have was what if I enroll and participate in one of the USDA NRCS programs, but decide to sell the property? What happens then?
Okay. That's a great question. Uh, First of all, I would say visit with that district conservationist. Keep him or her involved throughout the whole process. At that point, uh, there are certain provisions that would allow you to transfer the contract to that new individual that's going to be the new landowner. If that individual is willing to accept the contract and meet the eligibility requirements. So that's the two biggest things: is if he or she is willing to accept the contract, and from there looking at if they meet the eligibility requirements, or you could possibly request a cancellation. Alternatives will be discussed between you and that district conservationist, and from there, basically, you'll be provided information on moving forward as far as the appropriate route, if you can go through and cancel it without termination fees, if there's fees involved. But once again, that would be something to discuss directly with that conservationist, depending upon the situation.
Okay. And I got one more. How are costs determined for like the programs and all that?
Okay, okay. Cost basically is determined regionally. So, for example, here in Texas, basically Texas and Oklahoma, the prices are researched and determined for programs. So, typically, you're going to look at that cost, and it's going to be looked at by the state economist as well as the Ecological Science Division. They will have a meeting to where they will determine and set those prices. So once again, the prices, if you look at it here in Texas versus, say, for instance, Louisiana, they might be different. But once again, that is derived by uh, uh, how that state economist as well as the Ecological Science Division, after pulling all that data together to formulate those prices. And that's the way it's pretty much determined.
Okay. Thank you for that, Floyd. We might have time for a few questions, but real
Okay.
quick, can you go to the previous slide where it showed your email address? Someone in the chat
Okay.
wanted that. And if not, I can also just type in, or you can
I
type
got
in the
it.
chat. But let me see if we have any questions real quick. Okay.
Can you see it?
Um, I don't see it, but if you can type in the chat, or I can do
Okay.
it in a bit while I'm looking at the questions that we have. So one of the questions that we have is are the veteran service different for other NRCS services, or I guess it just depends. Oh,
Just 1 second.
yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit it too fast.
You're fine. Yeah, I went ahead and put it for you, Floyd. There we
There
go.
it is. We at the same time. Okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry. Now, what is that question?
Are veteran service different from other NRCS services? Or I guess it kind of depends.
No, basically, all services are basically provided to everybody and anybody that comes into our offices. As far as if you're talking about financial opportunities under our programs. If you're a beginning farmer or rancher, there are special provisions in the Farm Bill that allow for that. So once again, like I say, basically everybody's application is ranked looking at what the concerns are on their property. If it fits a special category, then from there it will basically be ranked under that special category.
Mhm. Okay. Um, I see a lot of questions. A lot of questions I'm seeing very specific. I recommend reaching out to your local service center for more
Yes, sir.
specific questions. We can only answer more generic ones. Um, if you need assistance locating your local service center, I recommend just going to the NRCS website. If you scroll down, there's a part where it says find your local service center. You can put your state and your county, and it will show up the results there. But I believe that's all the time we have for today. Um, Lloyd, thank you for your time today for the great presentation. Any last words before we end?
No, like I say, once again, thank you all for your service. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attentiveness. And once again, like I say, you have my email address. If you're in a different state, I'm more than willing to connect you with the appropriate field office or the beginning farmer rancher coordinator for that specific state. So once again, thank y'all for everything that you do. And I hope you have a pleasant and a great remainder of your day and a positive experience when working with USDA and RCS.
Thank you, Floyd. And real quick, this again is recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next couple of days. I'll put the link in our chat, as well as the link to our newsletter. If you're not subscribed to our monthly newsletter, please do. We have a lot of useful information on that. But other than that, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Floyd.
Thank you.